Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining for another live stream tonight. Super excited for my guest tonight. I think a lot of people will obviously know the last name Beam, and it'll be interesting for I think you guys to get a little bit of that perspective from Craig Beam. And yeah, there are a lot of people I've had on the channel, and tonight is one of those nights where I'm extremely excited to learn more, know more about him, things he's done in the past, his experiences, and then obviously we'll get into the new venture with JAckson Purchase. So let me first say hi to a few people that were in here, and we'll kind of get after it here in 1 second. So let's see who was in here. I know a couple people first. I know Paul was in here. Red Frog Bourbon. Thanks for jumping in here. Mr. Travis Roweson, Dave Bettendorf. How are you doing, buddy? Connoisseur Eric, how's it going? I know everybody will get the notification here in a second. But yeah, super excited. So thanks everybody for joining tonight and being a part of it. It will be it's going to be a really, really fun night. So whether you're watching now or the replay later on down the road, this will give us a really good idea of really a little bit more about Mr. Craig Beam and JAckson Purchase. So without further ado, let's kind of get into tonight. We'll bring on tonight's guest, and we'll get after this a little bit. So Mr. Beam, how are you doing, sir?
Just fine. How are you, Scott?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Thank you so much for taking some time and answering maybe a few questions. And I'm really, really looking forward to kind of getting after this thing a little bit. That's for sure. So, for the people at home and anybody who, I think most people are going to be obviously familiar with the last name Beam, but for anybody who isn't familiar maybe with, you and your past and experiences, do you mind kind of sharing a little bit about that with everybody else? And then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Craig Beam. I'm the master distiller at JAckson Purchase Dstillery. And yes, my last name, as you know, is Beam. And so the biggest question everybody always asks me right out the gate, are you kin to Jim Beam? And the answer is yes. Jim Beam was my would have been my great uncle. So I'll go ahead and start telling you my history, how my family got into the business a little bit. Of course, as Dad always said, your last name Beam kind of gets your foot in the door anyway. But so I guess growing up, my grandfather was Earl Beam. Earl Beam worked at Jim Beam as assistant distiller in the late 30s and early 40s under his brother, Carl Beam. And so Carl Beam was the master distiller, or well, back in the day, they didn't call them master distillers. They just call them head distillers. And my grandfather worked under him. Well, we had a distant cousin, I don't know, third or fourth cousin, name was Joe Beam. Well, Joe Beam always made bourbon around, whiskey around, and then when Prohibition set in, Joe made his way into Mexico and set up a little distillery operation there. Well, when Prohibition lifted, he made his way back to the United States, and he settled in Kentucky in Bardstown, and he bought this little distillery from a family named Heaven Hill. And so his idea was to get this little distillery going. And so he got the Shapiro family, who was originally 5 brothers that was in the clothing business back in those days. And this was like 1935, I believe. And he got the Shapiro family involved. I really don't know how he met up with them exactly, but they became investors in the distillery. So Joe's idea was, when things got going along several years, his idea was going to buy the Shapiro family out. Well, things limped along there for a year or two. Then Joe's health started getting bad, so he sold his interest all to the Shapiro family, who owns Heaven Hill today. And So he had a son named Harry. So Joe turned things over to Harry. And so Harry took over as being the head distiller at Heaven Hill at the time. And things really didn't work out too well with Harry. The superiors wasn't really satisfied with, they thought the quality should be better and the yield. So word of mouth got around that Heaven Hill was looking for a head distiller. Well, my grandfather's brother Carl said, Earl, why don't you go try it at Heaven Hill? Because as long as you're here with me at Jim Beam, you're going to always be working as my assistant. Said, I'll help you if you need help. So to give you opportunity to kind of move yourself up and get you a better position. If you need help, I'll help you. And, if it doesn't work out, you can always come back here and have a job here at Jim Beam. Anyway, it's a good, friendly family split. And my grandfather Earl joined Heaven Hill in 1946. Well, my father Parker Beam, he joined Heaven Hill in 1960. He worked along his father, Earl, and then Earl, my grandfather Earl, found kind of semi-retired in around 1975. So Dad became the head distiller. My father Parker did. Anyway, growing up as a family, growing up as a kid, so all I heard about was distillery talk. I heard my grandfather and my father. We have a farm. We were feeding cattle, doing farm work, putting up hay, whatever, putting up fence, working on stuff. There was always distillery talk. That's all I ever heard. My grandfather and my father would actually, while they're farming, they would kind of get in sometimes some heated discussions about how something ought to be done at the distillery. And one would say, no, I'll do it this way. Anyway, everything always worked out good. Nobody really fell out, but just listen to that. And of course, going back to my grandfather's brother, Carl Beam also had some sons, Baker Beam, which I don't know if everybody heard of Baker's Bourbon at Jim Beam. Well, that was my father's first cousin. Of course, Baker had a brother, David Beam. And David and Baker, when his father, Carl, retired, well, actually, I think he passed away kind of suddenly of a heart attack at 72. And so Baker took over that head position, the head distiller at Jim Beam at the Claremont facility. Of course, back in the day, you had Booker Noe came along. He married into the Beam family, so there's some kinship there. Booker ran the Boston, Kentucky plant at Jim Beam. Anyway, just growing up as a kid, you listen to Baker talk about, bourbon growing up and David Beam and of course Booker Noe. And just growing up, listening to all that, listening to them talk the whole time we were farming, my grandfather and my father and I worked on cattle all the time, giving them shots and pulling stobs out of feet and pulling the calves sometime. I just did everything that I could. Very seldom did I call a vet till it got down to something that was kind of something that I couldn't get a calf out. So one time we had to call a vet and do a cesarean on a cow and on a young heifer actually. And so I remember Dad, he didn't like seeing all that, but anyway, I helped the veterinarian. But so, then I was kind of fascinated with all the working on the cattle. And then I was always fascinated with the weather also. You're watching the weather, trying to cut hay and watching the weather, for how bad the snows are going to come in. You got it, so the weather played a big factor. And so going along, I thought, well, maybe I'd like to be a veterinarian, but I didn't really like to go to all that school. It's going to take a lot of school. And so then I thought, well, maybe I'd like to be a meteorologist. But again, that takes a lot of schooling too.
More school.
Yeah. So anyway, I still was kind of unsure. My father and grandfather wasn't pressing me to join them. Growing up, you just heard all that distillery talk all the time.
Yeah.
So I started. Dad told me one day in the summer, so I got a job for you one summer. It's like 1980. I got a job for you at the distillery. Heaven Hill had bought some old warehouses that was owned by T.W. Samuels right outside of Bardstown, Kentucky. Had been vacant for several years. Some of the roofing was gone, some of the windows were out, so they had a lot of pigeons that roosted in these 5 warehouses that Heaven Hill bought. So Dad said, "You have any of your friends that's looking for a job this summer?" So I rounded up 5 guys that I knew, and we went in and we started cleaning out all the pigeon droppings.
Oh boy!
I mean, the pigeons. Really, the pigeon shit was this thick.
Yeah,
they're thick on the ricks where they went in there and roosted for years. It was a mess, really. So, of course, we learned to start from the top and work our way down the floors. Like I said, there was 5 warehouses, 7 stories. 7 stories, 7 floors high. And at the end of the day, of course, we didn't get done with it. It took us biggest part of the summer to do all 5 of those.
Jeez.
And at the end of the day, when you got through working on them, you'd just look like a coal miner. You'd come out and be just black as I don't know what. But
Yeah.
So that was one of my summer jobs. I did that. And then another summer job, I stacked cases on pallets before they had palletizers in the bottling house. And I swept up garbage. I hauled garbage to the landfill there around the bottling house. Then another summer, I drove a semi for Heaven Hill over the road there for a little while. And then, so I guess just growing up with it, I thought, well, maybe that's what I should probably do is see if I can get on at Heaven Hill. So I talked to Dad. So anyway, I got my foot in the door there. I started in 1983 at Heaven Hill Distillery. My grandfather was still living. He was 83 years old. He was actually still working at Heaven Hill. He didn't retire. He was working a couple of days a week, making what we call our jug yeast. Him and Dad made the jug yeast once a week. And that's the yeast strain that Heaven Hill is working off of today. And actually, Jim Beam is working off the same yeast strain also. But we would grow a new batch every week. So I got trained under my father and my grandfather, watching over the yeast and learn how to make the yeast. So I don't know, 6 or 8 months, they decided to turn the yeast operation over to me. So then I became a swing shift supervisor. I worked all 3 shifts, worked with the guys there at the older guys at Heaven Hill. Of course, I grew up with going out to the distillery with my grandfather when I was young and my father all the time. So I got to know some of those older guys there when I started in the distillery. So I guess my grandfather, he lived to be 87. Of course, the last 2 or 3 years he got where he couldn't drive, but he was very much aware of what was going on. And what was going on, I would always tell him what was going on at the distillery. I would even bring some of our jug yeast to let him taste it. So he liked that. So I got his approval of what I was doing. So anyway, I had I guess I don't think anybody actually had a chance to work in the distillery under their grandfather and father all at the same time. So
yeah, that's awesome.
I got a pretty good training there, I felt like. And again, working all 3 shifts, you kind of got to know, whatever shift was doing. And we had old steam pumps back in those days that my grandfather had bought when he joined Heaven Hill. I learned how to steam packing. There's steam pumps, so I learned how to pack those. I learned how to make sure that I had plenty of oil in it and made sure the liquid packing was all good. So I learned a whole lot about that kind of stuff. Anyway, then Dad, I guess about 2000 maybe. Let's see me back up. I guess in the late 80s, early 90s, I guess they started calling us master distillers. And so they had the master distillers also traveling to all these Whiskey Fest in Chicago, Whiskey Fest New York, Whiskey Fest in San Francisco, Whiskey Fest in Washington, D.C. So Dad and I would travel together a few times on some of those. Not all the time we both could go, but somebody had to be there watch over the distillery. So
Yeah.
anyway, I guess Dad kind of semi-retired. I think year 2000, somewhere like that. So then I got elevated up to be the master distiller.
Yeah.
And so, of course, Dad, kept him abreast of what was going on. Of course, he was still very active. He never retired from Heaven Hill at all either. Most distillers, most time, don't just work till they can't work anymore, and most time they just, the health fails, so then they're just most time just pass away. Well, again, Dad and I'd be out farming together. We'd be out in the hay field. He'd be running a piece of equipment, and I'd be running a piece of equipment. He'd stop, and we'd have almost a distillery meeting out in the hay field. Hey, I got this idea, or hey, let's do this. Hey, let's try this. I guess, being out there on tractors, for 8 hours at a time, you do think about that kind of things and come up with different ideas. And we'd stop 2 or 3 times, and I finally say, hey, I look up at the sky and say, hey, well, I believe we better quit. We better quit stopping so many times to get this hay up. The clouds are moving in, so we're going to get our hay wet if we don't keep going. So, so, of course, not only, I had big shoes to fill, you might say, even though my last name was Beam, I got my foot in the door, but that still didn't mean, you couldn't cut corners. You couldn't be relaxed. You had to keep pushing ahead because I had a lot of big shoes to fill, and so Shapirs, I'm assuming they seemed happy. Everything was going right along. The yield was good and all that. I didn't have any trouble. They seemed happy as could be, and so anyway, went along pretty good, and I guess we had the single barrel program came out. I guess it seemed like I'm trying to think now when that all started, maybe early 90s or something. We had the Evan Williams single barrel, and of course Elijah Caig small batch. I see that back here on your shelf back here behind you. We had that, and we had Henry McKenna's single barrel, and so those things came along, and I helped develop the Bernheim wheat whiskey, and then we spun off we had Old Fitzgerald. I spun that off into the Bernheim wheat whiskey, and then we had Larceny, which is a wheated bourbon also as well. So Dad, 2012, he got diagnosed with ALS, and of course we had a farm. We branched out on the farm. We bought more land and added more cattle. My father had 40 semi trucks. At the time, I had 20 semi trucks. So our farming operation was spread over about 3 counties in Kentucky there. And so as he got worse in about 2014, I'd been at Heaven Hill about 32 years. So I finally retired. I stayed maybe another year as a consultant, but if they needed me. So I finally retired, and I helped my father to run the family business. And helped him and my mother. And so Dad passed away in 2017, and I helped my mother through that. And we sold off his semi trucks, and because there's just so much there to try to take care of. We still got the cattle, still got all the farms, and then I increased mine from 20 trucks to about 25 trucks myself. So anyway, I guess that took probably a couple of years to get all that done. So in the meantime, I heard about this distillery in Western Kentucky, in a little town called Hickman, Kentucky. It's far western Kentucky, far west as you can possibly go. And I knew the fellow there that started that distillery called Resolute. His name was Ray Jameson. Attorney out of Memphis. He worked with people and helped them when they got in trouble, like bankruptcies. And so I would run into Ray probably 10, 12 years, I guess, every year during the Bourbon Festival. And he was telling me about putting this little distillery together. And he just, every time I guess he got a little bit of money, kept adding on and trying to buy more equipment, trying to get it all set up. Well, I didn't really pay a lot of attention what all he was saying, but I didn't know what was going to ever happen of it. And then next thing I know, like I said, it was called Resolute. He had leased it out to a group of people. And of course, been in the trucking business, I hauled grain to two distilleries as well. So I got a call from Resolute, and they wanted a load of rye and a load of malt. So I took that down there to them. And I never heard any more about the distillery. Next thing I knew that the Resolute shut the distillery down. A lot of things wasn't working out down there. So again, went along there, wasn't looking for a job, and then I get a call. Well, I get home from the farm one afternoon, and this fellow called my wife, Nicole. Somebody told him, if you need grain, to call Nicole Beam. So they got talking, and that fellow is named David Salmon. Well, David Salmon worked at Heaven Hill. He ran the Hypnotic brand. Of course, my wife at the time worked at Heaven Hill in the marketing department. And so her and David, they knew each other. Well, I had met David a time or two while I was at Heaven Hill, but then he left, and I didn't know whatever happened to him. Well, they got talking, realized they knew each other. Then they was putting all that together, and David's, oh, what? You're married to Caig. What is he doing? So I came home. Nicole told me, you'll never guess who called me, told me the story. And I said, well, this was like May the 1st of 2021. And said this David Salmon called, said they're starting this distillery called JAckson Purchase. And he wants you to call him. Of course, in the month of May is pretty busy time for me around the farm, because we get ready to work all of our cattle, wean the fall calves off, and work the spring calves, and put fly tags in the cows' ears, and doing all that sort of thing. And then the first cut in the hay is right around the corner too. So I said, well, I just kind of let it go in one ear and out the other, because it's about a 3.5, 4 hour drive from Bardstown. And I thought, well, I can't, it's going to take somebody's got to be down there all the time. So in the meantime, that went along. I never called David back. And in the meantime, I get a call from Terry Ballard. Terry Ballard had worked at Willett's Distillery. I guess I knew Terry for probably 10 or 12 years. And Terry had called me before I found out about JAckson Purchase, and said he left Willett's. And I said, well, Terry, you shouldn't have a hard time getting a job. You should be able to get on just about anywhere, really, because, he helped Willett's get built up from the ground up, and he's a hands-on fella, and he's kind of a jack of all trades, really. So I said, if I hear something, I'll let you know. So anyway, I get home again. Another week went by, and David had called again. So we finally went down the basement. Nicole and I did, like we do every Friday night, go over our truck schedules, what we've had. We're sending our truck schedules out to our drivers on Fridays. Of course, we had a few drinks, and we also went over the cattle plan, what group of cattle was going to work this week, this time, and went over that sort of thing. So we decided to call David. And of course, I told David I had all this going on. So he said, well, can you just come down and meet me and Lloyd Jones? Lloyd Jones is the CEO of JAckson Purchase. And Lloyd's family, and Lloyd grew up around the Hickman, Fulton County area. Said, can you come down and just walk through and meet us and see what we got to do? So made a day trip down there. I even took my wife, Nicole, with me, and went down there and met Lloyd and David. Of course, Lloyd and David live in Louisville, so they're neighbors. So David had always, he's got a little distillery up in Michigan called Uppy Dog. So, and he always kind of worked in being a kind of a bourbon broker. So was back then, whiskey was booming, bourbon was booming. And so he told Lloyd if we could find a distillery he believes we could make some money. So that's how they got like 25 investors, and they found this distillery down there on a duck hunting trip in Western Kentucky. So they pursued Ray Jameson. I think they started fooling with Ray, trying to pursue him about 2018, I think. And then they went back and forth for a year. Then by the time they got ready to seal the deal, that's when COVID hit and kind of stalled everything out. So they finally made the deal in 2021, April 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I was up front with Lloyd and David, and I said, you're going to have somebody down here every day, and I've got too much going on right now back in Bardstown that I run the family business. So I can't, I can't devote the time it's going to take to get this going. I said, however, I know somebody that just might. I said, Terry Bauer. Of course, he was a single guy. His kids were grown, so he had a little more flexibility, I guess, at the time than I did. So I said, of course, Terry lives in Bardstown too. I said, they said, well, can you talk to him? I said, oh, yeah, I'll call him on the way back home. So I did. I called Terry and told him what was going on. I said, well, you want to go down there and look? I set up a time, and he went down and met David and Lloyd, and so the rest is history. He joined them, and so then David and Lloyd they called me, wanted to meet me again. So I said, well, just come to my house. I said, I'll be home off the farm there. So they came, we went down in the basement, talked to, I guess, a couple of hours, and I guess they wanted to know if I could work 15, 20 hours a week, taking phone calls and emails, maybe work with Terry. Said, come to the distillery as much as you like. And so I guess they threw out a number there. So I thought, well, okay. I thought, this might be an opportunity that I can do something a little bit different that's not following what my grandfather and my father did. Of course, my concern in the back of my mind, I always heard my father and grandfather say, you can't make good bourbon in Western Kentucky due to the water. So that was my big concern. So that's what I brought up to David and Lloyd. I said, what's the water situation like? I said, that's my concern. And of course, we're 3 miles from the Mississippi River. Of course, we sit on the distillery sits up on a knoll. It's not down at the bottom. It's 3 miles away from distillery, but it sits on farmland. We're right in the middle of a cornfield. Anyway, they ran test and 2 times and 3 times. We were lucky. Of course, we're on well water. We had several wells down there, and it was on a limestone shelf, really. How unique I thought that was to be able to be that lucky right there.
Yeah.
So I decided to go ahead and join them, with the understanding that, I'll come and go when I needed to, and everybody was understanding that. So, of course, I knew, I need to get down there. They didn't tell me what days or anything I need to be there, but, I had enough sense enough to know that, we've got to get this thing going. So anyway, I'd go once a week. I'd get up at 3 a.m, drive down, meet Terry to be down there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes sooner. And of course, they was an hour behind us, and we'd spend the day with Terry and he had some vendors, and we had some local people there that came on board and to help us get things cleaned up. And we had an outside contractor that started working on things for us. And anyway, by August the 1st, 2021, we made our first barrel. And that's what this is right here. This first batch. Batch was part of what was bottled up from August 2021. We bottled this up in September last year, 2025, during the Bardstown Bourbon Festival. But we started out, and we still are, a contract distiller. So we didn't have to go out and knock on people's doors to get the business. word of mouth got out.
Yeah.
And about Terry and I and the experience that we had. And so people started coming to us knocking on our door. And of course, the little distillery only would make 25 barrels a day. And had 4 little fermenters. I had a 24-inch all copper column Vendome steel. So we realized that we need to expand on that little distillery. So we put 8 more stainless steel fermenters in and had those put in and had it up to 50 barrels a day by December 2021. We ran at 50 barrels a day, 7 days a week. First, we didn't even have any warehouses. We was looking little at the river port down there at Hickman to try to find some buildings they had sitting vacant down there, but that didn't seem like that was going to really be feasible and work very good for us without doing a lot of work. So there was a blue jean factory down at Hickman, about I guess half mile from the Mississippi River. In fact, you can look out the front of the warehouse and see the levee at the Mississippi River. And it's just right up the road from the river port down in Hickman. So it was a blue jean factory, 75,000 square foot building, sitting vacant. And all the equipment was stripped out of it, had dock doors around it, some windows in it, and sit on like 17 acres. So we bought that. And of course, at first we didn't have the warehouse space. We had like 10 shipping containers stacked, lined all around the distillery. And we was rolling like 80 barrels, I think they would hold at a time in there. So until we figured out what we were going to do with the warehouse. So anyway, about finding the warehouse. So anyway, we got it up and bought it, and we started palletizing the whiskey in there. And went along there for about a year. So we decided we still wasn't making enough for the business that we had. And of course, we still had one mash bill. The mash bill on this is 70% corn, 20% rye, and 10% malt. That's the mash bill we started out with that we offered all of our customers with. Everybody seemed to be really satisfied with that. So 2023, we started putting together, and at the distillery property, which we had, was like 15 acres when we bought the distillery. Well, we bought another 15 acres that joined the distillery property, got up to about 30 acres there. So then we built a new distillery. We built, put in 3 mash cookers, 10,000 gallon mash cookers, 13 20,000 gallon fermenters, stainless steel fermenters. We put in a 36-inch column steel, all copper, right beside the 24-inch copper. Although it was Vendome copper, Vendome steel, because at the time Vendome was going to be like 18 months out, and we couldn't wait that long before they could get to us. So we went to Louisville Exchanger, built that for us, which turned out fantastic. Then we built a bigger cistern room where we can do where we can barrel a lot more for barrels. So we got up to 250 barrels a day, and we ran that for about a year, 7 days a week. Also, we built 2 traditional rick warehouses on site at the distillery property. They're just like little under 25,000 barrels each. And to this day, we got our palletized warehouse that holds 50,000 barrels. It's been full for about a year. We've gone into our one of our rick warehouses. It's been full now for about 3 or 4 months. And then we're starting in our second rick warehouse right now. It's probably 10, 12,000 barrels in that. I guess I think the last count, we've got about 123,000 barrels in storage right now.
Wow.
And since then, we've got a new palletized warehouse, just got finished about 2 weeks ago. It's at the other warehouse location. It's going to hold 33,000 barrels. Yeah. We got concrete pad poured for the other palletized warehouse. it's going to hold 48,000 barrels.
Jeez.
So we should be sitting pretty good on warehouse space for a little while. Now, like everybody, things have slowed up for us the past year or so. So we have cut back to 5 days a week. I guess at the top of the line, we had about 53 people employed, and we've cut back and we've had, I think, got about 45 employees right now. Running 5 days a week, we have cut back to 150 barrels a day. But we feel really fortunate where we are at JAckson Purchase. We didn't go in and spend a lot of money. We didn't go buy 300 or 400 acres, and we like so many do. And we didn't have a lot of investment. Just bought enough property there so we can, be good for the next 3 or 4 years. If we got to build more warehouses, I guess we probably got 100 acres total together. Now, we didn't go build work. We don't have a visitor center. However, we just built a tasting room, just down getting that set up at the distillery. Of course, it's all done in-house. We do a lot of that kind of stuff ourselves. And a couple more offices because we've had to expand on the offices as we got more office personnel. And then also we have a Louisville office we opened up in Louisville, Kentucky about a year and a half ago, I guess. And right down a couple blocks or a block or so from the Louisville office, we're also right now working on a speakeasy. I think it's supposed to be ready. The goal was to have it ready this week for the Derby Festival.
Yeah.
In fact, I know it is because we got an event there. I believe it's Saturday night right after the Derby.
Okay.
So our future looks bright. Now, since then, we went back to we're a contract distiller. So since then, we have offered the past year or so different mash bills to our customers. They didn't go out there and ask us to do this. We threw out some mash bills. We do have a weeded mash bill out there, which we've made on our own, and we offered a 25% weeded mash bill, a 51% wheat whiskey. We have offered. We do have a 95% high rye. We do have a 51% rye. We started offering different style barrels, 36 air dried stayed barrels. We got a couple of customers really like those. Started offering toasted barrels. We got some customers liking those. And of course, our regular charred number 4 barrel is what we used here in this.
Yeah.
And get back to this, the Western Kentucky weather has really enhanced the aging process.
Yeah.
And there being the warmer climate down there. I was really shocked myself when I started checking this at 2 years old, how dark it was and how it tasted even at 2 years old. I was just really blown away. And the only thing I could put my finger on was, hey, we didn't do anything any different when in a charred number 4 barrel. But it had to be the weather because I started watching the weather. Again, it gets back to me being the weather guy,
Yeah.
But watching the weather and how much warmer it was down there, Western Kentucky versus Bardstown, kind of a central part of the state, where it's a little cooler up here. How everything down there stays warmer longer in the fall, probably 4 weeks longer in the fall, warms up 4 weeks earlier in the spring, because farmers down there, most of them already finished planting corn. They start planting corn like the end of March down in that area. And of course, we're surrounded by corn, surrounded by wheat. We got all of our corn is sourced by local farmers. All of our wheat is sourced by local farmers. We do have a few local farmers growing a little bit of rye for us down there. So again, that gets back to the farming aspect of it and the cattle, because I had to find out who had cattle down in that area there so we could get rid of our byproduct. to farmers and kind of encourage them, hey, this is good protein. This is good feed for you. It's going to be free, and you're going to get it every day of the week for the next, I don't know, you get it 48 weeks out of the year. So I had to go and kind of convince them of that. So to get them on board. So that's worked out really well for the farmers down there. And of course, naturally helped us get rid of our byproduct. We put in a wet feed system in the past year or so. So we're offering a wet cake, which is like a 50% moisture wet cake, which some farmers like that a little better than our what I call the slop, which is all heavy liquid. But so again, we're a contract distiller. We saved a few bottles back for ourselves, anticipating a few barrels back, anticipating one day we'll have a brand ourselves, which we did. We came out with our batch 1. Now, since then, we came out with another brand. We just bottled it last week. We don't have a bottling house, but we did our bottling. Bardstown Bourbon bottled it for us, because I've known those guys out there. I've known some of them for many years. It's been in the business for 20 years. Some of them came from Jim Beam. Some came from Barton Brands. Some came from Size Rack. So they'd all had a lot of experience in the bottling end of it. So that's where, we didn't have the equipment for a bottling house. So that's who I relied on during our bottling. And they've done a great job. Now, we just came out with one here. It's called Distiller Select. Now, that's going to be actually the same mash bill.
Okay.
That we got out now with batch 1, but this is going to be our flagship brand.
That'll be small batch.
Right. Well, it's going to be, I guess you might call it a small batch. Yeah. So then after that, we're going to come out probably with one in bonded here by, I think maybe July.
Okay.
And later on this fall, we're going to think about coming out with single barrel.
Okay.
So I think the Bourbon Festival would like for us to come up with one by that time, a single barrel. So we're working on that, looking at that right now.
Sorry, go ahead.
Now our small batch, right? Our first small batch, or our batch 1 is only in Kentucky right now. You can order it online. Of course, the batch 1 is just about depleted. It's not a lot of that left. You can order it online at JAckson Purchase Bourbon.com and have it shipped to your house. Unless you live in Kentucky, and then you can look around and try to buy it in Kentucky. Yeah. We are talking to a few other states: Tennessee, Georgia, Missouri, Louisiana, and Texas. And probably, especially Tennessee, we'll probably get into there, I don't know, maybe in the next 30 days or so.
Wow.
So, yeah, so we're going to branch out a little bit.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Let me ask you, let me go back a little bit, and you working with your father, and then we'll get into more of the JAckson Purchase stuff and the bottle and the mash bill and all that. But I wanted to ask you, like, with working with your father, Parker, and your grandfather as well, like with those experiences, I guess, what did that allow for you to do, I guess, now to take that experience and ultimately spring, forward the ability for you to be able to kind of craft all of these different, mash bills and be comfortable doing, and creating all of these different mash bills?
Well, it gave me an opportunity. Of course, when we first started Heaven Hill, just Evan Williams mainly for a long time. Then it branched out and had Evan Williams 1783. Small batch was really aged at the time. It was aged a little bit longer than the regular Evan Williams was, and it was considered a small batch. And then you went, then Elijah Caig, I think, came along. I don't know, mid 80s. I'm thinking, I can't quite remember, but it was 12 years old. So just kind of branching off of that. So I thought, well, I go carry all that knowledge and all that stuff we did, take everything that I learned and develop something there at JAckson Purchase. So it just, of course, one thing's my grandfather and my father taught, make sure everything stays clean. You got to run hot water every day, after at least once a day. 212-degree water has to be flushed out through all your lines. If you got a 4-inch line, don't run 2-inch. Don't fill it up half full. Don't run it 2 inches in there. It's got to be full. They, things like those little things like that. They taught you keeps the bacteria out. Never did we ever get infected with bacteria problems at Heaven Hill while I was there, and we haven't done. And carrying that knowledge right on into JAckson Purchase, we kept that going too at JAckson Purchase, keeping everything good and clean. So that was one of the things, they really drove that home to me. Got to keep things clean. So just carrying all that right on in, what I learned there in the JAckson Purchase, kind of tweaked the little things here and there and carried the tradition right on.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So now, now with you kind of transitioning over to JAckson Purchase, and settling on that particular mash bill, the 70-20-10, what was it about that, I guess, the mash bill, and then did a lot of that have to do with the particular grains? I know with your business and hauling grain and all of that and being very familiar with all of that, is there something about that combo that really you kind of focused, I guess, kind of heavily on in order to, I guess, bring out the particular flavor profile, you wanted from JAckson Purchase?
Well, I just, people were more for cocktails, really were looking for a little higher rye percentage. And I know at Heaven Hill, we did a 78% corn and 10% rye and 12% malt. So I thought, well, just back off on the corn, do something a little bit different, do a 70% corn and a little higher rye, a little bit more spice. Probably goes well with I feel like it goes well with for a cocktail also as well, and in 10% malt. And just doing something a little bit different. When we offered our customers other mash bills, they said, well, what's wrong with what you've got out there? I said, well, there's nothing wrong with it. We just thought if you want to branch out, and do something a little different. And of course, Terry, he came from Willits, so they made a little higher rye there too as well. So, and between us both, we, settled in on this. There was one thing I failed to say, that we are making American single malt also for a few customers. We made that the first time a year or so ago, and we get ready to make it next week again for a customer. So we made we've made several thousand barrels of American single malt, and we're putting that into used barrels. Of course, that's for customers. We are saving a few barrels back for ourselves, and anticipate one day we might come out with a American single malt brand ourselves. That'd be several years down the road, though.
Yeah. So since you decided to launch, batch one of the full proof, I guess specifically with that in mind or in focus, 117.8 proof, why full proof, and kind of how did you land on that proof? What was that process like for you guys to get to the point where you're like, either, yes, no, maybe, and kind of all the adjustments that came in releasing, batch one.
Right. Well, again, got checking the samples, pulling samples that when it was 2 years old down there, how I was amazed by the color. Because my original thought was I wouldn't put anything out until it was 5 years old. I wanted to make sure we got enough flavor profile, enough color. So I thought, well, 5 years old would probably be just about right. then I got noticing how well at 2 years old, it was really picking the color really fast. So when it became 3 years old, I mean, the 3 years old already had the 5, 6 year old color to it already. I was really amazed.
Yeah.
So when we went to trade shows, I was taking samples that was 3 years old, 122 proof, 125 proof, and I was letting people come up at our table or booth and taste it. Well, people were just amazed by the color that it had at 3 years old, and they couldn't really believe it was 122 or 125 proof, the high proof, and how smooth it tasted. So I thought, okay, I believe we might be on something.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I believe we might be able to launch this at 4 years old, because this 4 year old right now, it's as dark as a 6 or 8 year old out there, maybe some 10-year-olds out there. So
yeah.
So how we end up with the proof, I know Terry and I talked about it. We wanted a higher proof, almost close to barrel strength, but we didn't really want to scare people off. So we wanted to stay 120 or less, but we didn't want to really get to 110 or less. So we tried different proofs, tried different stuff. We knew, Terry and I knew what we liked. So we got 6 more people involved, trying different proofs. And then we pulled out some more barrels, and this time we didn't proof it, and we let the panel taste it.
Mm-hmm.
And I told the panel, everybody be honest. If there's any doubt in your mind, just let us know. That everybody be honest. Do you really like it right here like it is? And everybody said yes. They was all amazed about the color that it had and how smooth it was. And then we proofed it, and it came 117.8. So that's where we left it. That's
how much. So with it landing at 117.8, like, what's the adjustment factor in terms of your proof points? How much do you think you're adjusting it down, kind of each time you're testing it, just to kind of know where you're landing at 117.8? Were you upwards of 120, 125 and kind of just working?
We were running around about 122.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where we end up being. Yeah.
All right. So really not a lot of water then, for the most part. This is pretty close to barrel proof.
Right.
Yeah.
And we do put it into the barrel at 120 proof.
Okay.
We don't, most people, 125 max is all you can put in it.
Yeah.
To be considered bourbon. So, and of course, some people cut it 110, 115, but I would never, get that low. But put into the barrel at 120 proof.
Are you kind of attributing a lot of the, I guess I'll say, kind of like advanced aging, due to like the weather and just the barrel conditions and where they're stored in the, your ricks and things like that, to, be a little bit different down there versus, Bardstown area?
Yes. That's what I just couldn't, I was just amazed with the weather, I guess, to make that age better. Because like I said, that's the only thing I could come up with. It had to be the difference is the weather down there. Of course, it's Western Kentucky's in the tornado alley down there too. We just barely missed the tornadoes the last 5 years we've been down there, just by a mile, 2 miles away. So I think they had some more bad storms down there last night. I think some power lines went down. I don't think the distillery, I didn't hear anything from Terry saying the distillery lost power, but anyway, we have lost power before, but the electric company down there really jumps on us right away. We're almost number one down there, getting us up and running again. So,
yeah. So let me ask you this, I guess. So for people that are interested in, I guess, the profile ultimately of kind of where it's at now, and then they can monitor obviously going forward. But I guess from your standpoint and kind of doing a lot of the tasting notes and just the general profile of it, can you share with people, I guess, watching now and or on the replay, kind of what they can expect from the batch one foolproof that you guys have offered right now, and maybe when they can expect batch two to come out at some point?
Well, get back to the batches. That's what we decide on. We're not going to go down that pipeline going batch, 2, 3, 4, and that sort of thing. Yeah. We're going to spin it off, and we went to Distiller Select, and then the next run will be bottled and bond. Okay. And then we're going to go from there to single barrel and that sort of thing. But may never be a batch two. But But get back to your other question about this. It was the taste profile. I mean, I think it's got some cinnamon to it, vanilla. Believe it or not, I even taste a little banana sometime in it. Might sound odd, but that's kind of what I get out of it. But I guess everybody's a little bit different. But I think you'll be very surprised about how smooth that 117.8 proof is. I think you'll feel a little bit of burn and spiciness due to the high percentage of rye, but then I think it really smooths out really quick. You don't have that big burn that's just lasting that you got to take a glass of water and wash it, keep that burn out.
I thought for this being like at or around, or I'm guessing a little bit above, like slightly above 4 years old, give or take. The one thing I think that gets lost for a lot of people, or a lot of people don't, talk necessarily about, is, kind of the texture of the whiskey. And the nice part about it was, at that age, a lot of times you don't get that oiliness or that velvety kind of, texture to it. And that was the thing that jumped out to me right away, which oftentimes will then help with just all the other general, flavors, lengthen the finish and all of that. But that was the one thing I noticed like immediately was, and it felt like the kind of that perfect mash bill where you still get a lot of the kind of corn sweetness a little bit, but that really nice kind of spice. The oak felt like, to me, like really, really balanced in there very well. Like you weren't overly focused on it, but you knew that it was there. It was complementing a lot of the sweetness that was there. But the other thing that was kind of interesting with this one to me was that you don't always get is a little bit of that kind of like dark fruit, while also getting, some of those like kind of green apple caramel kind of vibes with that really nice kind of peppery, oaky kind of spice factor, which was nice. And I would say for a 4-year-ish old, bourbon, it had an awful lot going, and just kind of wanting to advance this thing down the road to figure out what that profile would be at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Right. That's what really kind of got me excited to with the brand, and knowing, with you being behind it, where everything could potentially go and how incredible this bourbon really could be. So
right. And also let you know that was made at that batch one all came off the 24-inch column also as well.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a really, really fantastic pour. So I give you guys an awful lot of credit, and I think this has a lot to do with, obviously your experience and knowing what and what you think the general public is going to want, and probably your passion behind everything, knowing that we want to put out an incredible 4-year-old bourbon as much as you can, as your entry into the market. So let me, before I ask a few of these questions from some of the other guys, I wanted to ask, I guess with the current market nowadays, what is the focus for JAckson Purchase in being able to, I guess, kind of, continue to put out that great product and wanting and making people, feel like it's something that they want to reach for, on the shelf?
Well, just keep doing just keep doing what we're doing, really. Just keep making good bourbon, and we're not trying to cut any corners. I mean, I've been through slowdowns before. I saw when I was hired at Heaven Hill, everything took off in the early 80s and probably mid 80s or so. And then all of a sudden, everything just almost came to a halt. And in fact, heck, late 80s probably might be been just as bad, if not worse, than it is right now. Because both Jim Beam plants, they were shut down for about a year or so. Even talked about one time even possibly selling one of them. But then, a lot of distilleries didn't run for a very long time during the slowdown in the late 80s. Some of them only run, I don't know, 30 weeks a year or so and be down biggest part of the year. So that went along, for a couple of years. Yeah. Then as things started picking back up, and then of course it just went gangbusters for the last 10, 12 years. Everybody was building warehouses. Nobody could build warehouses fast enough, and everybody was running 7 days a week. Only the distilleries would only be down 45, 48 weeks out of the year. Just expand, boom, 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 and nobody could seem to make enough. And then that was very, very above normal. You always wondered in the back of your mind what's going to happen. It was bound to slow down sooner or later. And of course, when it did, of course, naturally, everything seems bad. But really, if you had watched your money, everybody, and prepared for something like that, I think I see a little slow. I don't know. It probably could last almost another year. It may not be all 2027, but I think it's going to come back. Will it ever be like it once was? Well, maybe not quite that bad. It may not be like it was, but I think it's going to be what I consider normal, if not even just a little bit above that.
Yeah.
Not only the country, but the whole world's kind of slowed up.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. It kind of seems like one of those, from a stock standpoint that, with it maybe being down a little bit right now, it kind of gives you an opportunity to reset, kind of continue making some whiskey in anticipation of it just rebounding and at least being what we would remember as, kind of a normal, whiskey market for the most part. And now you're not worried about trying to catch back up because now it's taken back off. You're already kind of ahead of the game, so to speak.
And just keep making just keeping the flow going, just like JAckson Purchase is. And then when things do pick up, you don't say, well, I don't have any whiskey now. What happened? That's what happened to so many people, that they didn't have whiskey. Then of course everybody had to cut the age statement back, and then they had to go source stuff. And that's another thing, gets back to sourcing. I wouldn't put my name on anything to source, our whiskey to try to come up with a brand. And the investors, the management team, they agreed. They didn't pressure me into, we got to go source something so we can come out with the brand. That was not the whole intention whatsoever. We're a contract distiller, and we probably, like I said, always will be, but they didn't pressure me. Oh, well, we want to put out a brand, but we're going to source a whiskey from somebody else, because they didn't even bring that up, and they probably know that wouldn't work with me. But to put my name on it anyway.
Let me ask you this: does an age statement, I guess, to you, I guess, in your mind, matter, or like what is your opinion or your thought on an age statement on a bottle?
Well, it does kind of give you a little bit of what you're tasting, I guess you might say. I mean, what's that? Was at Heaven Hill? The Evan Williams flagship brand was 7 years old for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, I guess. And of course, being there, you knew what it was when they took the age statement off. So some of the other age statements on other bourbons came off too, but kind of think it would give maybe the customer a little bit something to say, okay, well, gosh, this is 7 years old, this is 8 years old, this is 12 or 10, whatever. Kind of give them a little bit better, feel for what they are buying, I guess, might say. But
well, I'll say this about yours. I mean, I think like you had alluded to before, you're drinking above kind of its weight class. Like this does not taste and drink like your normal 4-year-old, bourbon. And
Right.
I don't mean that with any disrespect to anybody else, but oftentimes, you can only get so much out of a 4-year-old bourbon. But I think to your advantage and maybe being in the location that you are, that it's really allowing for those barrels to interact much more with with that whiskey. And you said yours are all char 4, correct?
Yes. Yes, that was
Okay.
charged 4 barrel right there. Yes.
Yeah. You start adding a little bit of some extra heat and some different weather climates to a char 4, that's already a nice little advantage right there for the most part. So, I mean, man, I'll tell you what, I think it's, a big credit to you and your team for putting out this whiskey. And it's not a surprise why I think this thing is really kind of taken off the way it is. I know there's a lot of people in the industry that I respect who've had a chance to try this, and they've all been extremely excited and I don't want to say surprised, but I think when you don't know or have an idea of what it is, in your mind, we've all tried a lot of 4-year-old whiskey, so your expectation is like, well, it's going to be good, but I think this definitely surpasses that, and that's a huge I think accolade to you and your team for just producing a fantastic whiskey.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't,
All right.
when we have tastings, or anybody comes up to our table, I don't even tell them what the proof is. I go through the small batch or the mash bill first and let them, while the whole time they're talking or I'm talking, then they finally taste it. And then I tell them the proof. I don't want to scare anybody away. So then I'll tell them the proof after they taste it. They can't believe it's 117.8.
Yeah, it's that's a sneaky 117.8 that might get a few people in trouble drinking that thing.
Well,
They're not
look on. I don't know if you looked on the back. You see that Scott on the back of the bottle. That's kind of representing the Mississippi River and that little paddle wheel down there, a little boat. You see that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you shine the light up looking straight through the front, so I tell everybody, when you drink that, you start to drink down to that boat, you start seeing the boat move, you better make
it's hard. I don't know if anybody can see that or not.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see on there, but
I
tell everybody
right in here, guys, right above the yellow label. Yeah. So
I tell everybody, you drink down to that boat, you start to see it move, you probably better slow up.
That's a good one. I think every distiller has got their own kind of little quirky type of thing, and clearly that's yours. Yeah. So you tell everybody to drink down to the boat, and they'll be feeling really, really good. Yeah. So things will be moving if you drink down to the boat. That's for sure.
Right.
So
right.
Oh man, let me ask you one other thing. I keep saying one other thing, and I've got like 10 one other things. But the name JAckson Purchase. How did it come about? What is the story behind JAckson Purchase?
Well, JAckson Purchase, the western part of Kentucky, is known as the JAckson Purchase area. Andrew Jackson, I guess it was 1811, 1812. He bought that section of Kentucky to seal the whole state from the Chickasaw Indians. And so that's how the western Kentucky area there, I don't even know where it starts, maybe Elizabethtown, Kentucky, or maybe even west of that, is known as the JAckson Purchase area.
Okay.
I don't know, states kind of divided up, like you got JAckson Purchase, then you got the Penny Isle. I can't remember now, school days, what the other parts of Kentucky is kind of doing it. Well, that's how the name came up.
I mean, that's it. That's interesting. I mean, that was a huge deal, obviously. So, I mean, to have your distillery, named after that. I mean, that's history in a bottle right there. History on a bottle, that's for sure, at least. But all right, let me get to a few of the questions, and then we'll wrap things up. I've got just a handful of questions, but All right. So the first one we had already discussed, obviously the distribution. Right now, that's Kentucky in terms of on the shelf, but you can go to JAcksonPurchase.com and order online as long as it's available.
Jackson Purchase Bourbon.com.
JAcksonPurchaseBourbon.com. So there you go. If you guys are looking for it, you can go there. And I think you had said batch one's still available, but going very, very quickly, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's see. What do we have here? So from Tommy G, it says, Mr. Beam, you formerly worked at Heaven Hill, where the stills were more than double the size of those at Jackson Purchase. What challenges does that present when going down in size so dramatically? Not from a volume standpoint, obviously, but from a taste standpoint.
Oh, really? There wasn't any challenge at all. I mean, everything's basically the same, just do it in little smaller quantities. But yeah, it really wasn't any challenge. It's just as long as you kept everything the same. I mean, just do it in little small batches. It's just. All
right. So volume doesn't really matter if you're doing it all the same.
Right.
Okay. All right. So what are your thought process? What do they do? Let's see. What does it say here? No, that's not it. All right. From Eric. What market says what market void inspired the launch of Jackson Purchase, and how does it differentiate itself from the competition?
Well, like I said, we're contract distiller, but we always saved a few barrels back for ourselves. And I guess really what kind of gets the competition is, again, it gets back to the Western Kentucky climate really enhanced the aging process. So that really kind of helped us against our competition, you might say.
Yeah. He was asking also, is there a particular I guess profile that you are kind of looking for in your whiskeys, or what is it that is a signifier to you that this is what I want out of your whiskey?
Well, I like again, gets back to color, but I like the taste profile to be smooth, sweet, not and have a little spice, just right, you might say.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a perfect mash bill for that. I think you're hitting on all points right there.
I didn't want something harsh. I didn't want, something off the wall that people just, like I said, had to have a glass of water to kill the burn.
Yeah.
Or the taste.
I guess speaking of water, are you someone who ever adds a drop or two of water? Or what are your opinion on that for you?
Well, it just all depends. If I'm going to have a long night, I'll add some water to it. Most time I drink it neat. This all depends on what I'm doing. If I'm going to be, sitting for hours, have several drinks, you probably ought to add a little water to kind of keep you going there. But if I'm just sitting around the house, I might just drink it on the rocks. Sometimes I have been known to just drink it neat.
Let's see what else we got.
My grandfather, my grandfather, he drank it. He poured some in a glass. He kept a glass sitting on his sink. Of course, back in the day, he had old porcelain sinks, and he had the glass turned upside down. But he poured him some neat. He turned the water spigot on and just go one time. What fell in, and that's why he drank it. Sometimes he turned the glass upside down, and always be a whiskey stain down that porcelain sink what dripped out of the glass.
That's an official measurement. One quick swipe across the yeah. Jeez. All right, so here's another one. This is kind of an interesting question. So this is from Travis Robeson, but it says, what are your thoughts on barrel rotation and its impact on the wood interaction?
Of course, we don't rotate our barrels. I don't think it's necessary that you'd have to rotate them because they're going to interact anyway, because you got hot climates, you got the whiskey soaking into the wood.
Yeah.
And when it turns cold, winter months, when it gets to zero, of course, it's pushing all your liquid out of the wood. So you kind of got that in and out motion. That's the reason Kentucky ages whiskey better. If you get too far south or too far north, if you vary off too far west, Kentucky's the right state because you got all those kind of climates. In the wintertime, it can be 0 one day and it can be 70 degrees the next day. So you got all that in and out going along all the time. So, I mean, rotating them.
Yeah.
That's a lot of extra labor and a lot of money there.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it also gives you the ability to, with the upper floors being, obviously a little bit hotter, lower floors being a little bit cooler, I guess from, whether it's single barrels or batching, I guess, you eventually become familiar with those profiles where they're coming from. And I guess it allows you to really craft something that, you can maybe kind of keep as something that's pretty consistent for the most part.
Right.
All right, so I think this might be the last question here. So, says, what's been the most difficult and most rewarding challenge you've faced while at JAckson Purchase or the transition over to JAckson Purchase?
Well, the reward, I guess you might say, is you started something new down at little town of Hickman. You employed 53 people down in that area there. You actually helped the economy down in that area there to grow. Not only did JAckson Purchase employ 53 people at one time, but it also employed the surrounding community by people working on your trucks, buying parts, buying tires, just fuel. I mean, it just helped the whole community. So that's rewarding. And it also helped the local farmers. I got to meet a lot of the community, head people, the executive judge executive down there, the mayor down there, the whole community. It, really embraced us, JAckson Purchase. In the Fulton County, Hickman area there. That's been rewarding. We've won some awards down there with the community. Everybody's glad we came in. I guess the biggest challenge was when we first started down there is getting the farmers hooked up to our byproduct. I had to go out and visit a few farmers along the way and kind of encourage them and explain to them, we're going to have this byproduct for you. It's not going to be on and off. It's going to be consistent for you that, if you invest into your livestock and expand your cattle herd or whatever, we're going to haul this to you. We got trucks, we'll haul it to you also as well. Some farmers do come pick it up on their own, but so, that was a little challenging at first, and get to know the local farmers. Once they got to know you, a lot of times here's what I found out. And I first was I buy all the grain down there too. So
yeah,
I had the farmers because I was calling them off. Somebody would give me a list of farmers to call to buy corn from. Well, I would call off my cell phone. My cell phone area code was 502. Down in that area, it was 270. Well, nobody answered my cell phone. Nobody down that area even had a voicemail box set up. So I finally realized, hey, I'll just call off the distillery phone because it's the same area code. I could call off my cell phone. Nobody'd answer, but as soon as I pick up the distillery phone, they'd answer right now because I had the same area code. So of course now I can call off my cell phone. Everybody knows who I am.
Yeah, that's a good thing. All right, so here's the last one. I think this is obviously a big honor, but with you being I guess being placed, I guess we'll say, into the Bourbon Hall of Fame in 2025. What does that mean to you, I guess, at this stage of your career? What does that mean to you?
Well, of course, that was a great honor. My grandfather made it to the Hall of Fame. Of course, I guess when he got nominated, he was already passed away. Dad was nominated. Trying to think when he was first nominated now, maybe 2008. I seem to ring a bell. I can't remember exactly. Then since then he had got nominated as Achievement of the Year or something like that. But anyway, it was a great honor that I got to be nominated and be into the Hall of Fame, followed my grandfather and my father's footsteps. So that's a great honor in itself right there. I got to be inducted as well. So
that's a big deal. And I mean, obviously the honor of having that. And I think probably from a personal standpoint for you having your name, next to your grandfather and your father and all of that. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. So congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Let me do this. So before we announce tonight's winner for the bottle, I wanted to, I guess, just ask you, is there anything else you want to kind of share about, JAckson Purchase and, the brand and where kind of, you see everything going and, what your hopes are, I guess, for the brand?
Well, just everybody just keep their eyes and ears open. There's always plenty of things that's going to be happening in JAckson Purchase in the future. Like I said, we just came out with the Distillers Select, so that's be on the market, I would guess, in the next 30 days or less. Heritage is our distributor in the state of Kentucky. We are working with Athens Distributing in Tennessee. Hopefully they'll get that into it the next 30 days or so. Been in touch with Georgia Crown. That may be later on in the fall before we get into there. Just been in touch with Louisiana and Texas, Missouri. So hopefully we'll get into those states in the next 90 days or so. Just kind of keep your eyes open, your ears to the ground, and we'll be coming out with single barrels and 100 and one in bonded to be soon. And so I just see the growth. We'll just be steady as she goes. Again, we're a contract distiller. If anybody needs to buy some barrels from us, whatever we can do for you, be glad to do it for you.
Yeah. Well, it's a big deal. I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm excited for not only your batch one foolproof, but I think anything that you do and that you, I guess, are willing to sign off on, going forward, I'm excited for it. And I can't wait to see just how the evolution of the brand kind of continues. So I'm excited for that. So, all right, here's what we'll do. So I'm going to share my screen here. We've got all of the names in there. Just added Adams in there last. But yeah, whoever gets the bottle, I'll tell you guys, you're going to be extremely, extremely, I think, impressed by this. So hopefully it'll go to somebody maybe who hasn't had an opportunity to try it. That would be fantastic. And then you can try it and let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear from you. So, all right, let me share my screen here, and then we'll do the drawing. So there we go. Okay. All right. So I've got everyone's names in there. So my assistant, also my wife, was nice enough to keep track of everything throughout the evening and got not only the stuff in on YouTube, but any other places that you guys may have sent anything. So let me shuffle the name or the names a few times, and then we'll spin the wheel, and we'll see if we can get one lucky winner. And good luck, everybody. So here we go. Uh-oh. All right, Mr. Top Jimmy. There you go, brother. You can I know you'll probably end up sharing it with somebody else. So that's pretty awesome. So he's one of the I'll say the pillars of the whiskey community. He's a fantastic job, and knowing him, I know he's I'll say a huge endorser of the brand. And he had mentioned earlier that it's become a brand for him that he likes to buy and gift bottles to people to allow them the opportunity to share it. So he's a hell of an advocate, I'll say for the brand. That's for sure. So we'll make sure and get Toby's information over to Nicole, and then we'll let him maybe figure out who he wants to share the bottle with. But Mr. Beam, I got to say thank you first and foremost for joining me tonight, sharing all of that amazing information. It's eye-opening to me, not only the history of Beam and your side of things, but now moving into JAckson Purchase and everything about the brand, and I think the bright future that it holds. So thank you so much for joining tonight. I greatly appreciate it.
For having me. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
It's super excited. Now then the next step will be convincing my my whiskey partner to get down there and do some single barrel selections. That's going to be that'll be a fun one to do. So again, thank you so much for joining tonight. Anything parting? Do you want to share maybe where people can find you and or JAckson Purchase online or any social medias?
Well, I'm trying to think. Let's see. Of course, I guess going to try to go to the Derby this weekend. Thursday and Friday Friday and Saturday going to go to the Oaks and the Derby. And then let's see. Then I think next weekend, I think it's the 9th, I believe, we're going to be in Owensboro, Kentucky for I think it's Bourbon and Barbecue or something like that.
Okay.
Down there for that time, if anybody's in Kentucky and wants some barbecue and good bourbon, come to Owensboro, Kentucky.
Sounds like a good time right there.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. I know we probably ran over a little bit on time, but thanks again for joining tonight.
I don't even know what time it is.
Yeah, well, we've been going for about an hour and a half. Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh,
that's
really?
For sure.
Gosh, don't seem like.
Yeah, it doesn't at all. So, but man, thanks again. I appreciate again all the knowledge and information and sharing more about JAckson Purchase. And thank you for putting out an incredible whiskey right out of the gate. So I think we're all excited to see where the brand goes and what the future holds for JAckson Purchase. So thanks again for joining tonight.
Well, thank you, Scott, for having me. Take care.
You got it. All right. Yes. Thanks everybody for joining tonight. And as always, like I say, it's about the journey, not the destination. Cheers, guys. We will see you guys sometime next week. Cheers, guys.